Hello! Are you thinking of bringing your little dog to France when you move there? Well, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't bring their little baby with them? This video is for you. I'm going to fill you in on all of the details on how to get your precious little baby across the ocean to France. So here's our little Bella. She's very excited that she's going to move to France. See, she even has her little French beret on. And she says she wants to continue to be called Bella when she's living there, even though maybe Belle would be a little more appropriate. So anyway, let's start sharing some information, very important information that you will need to consider when you are starting to plan your move from the United States to France with your little fur baby. So some people think that when you move to another country, you just take your dog and that's it, or your cat. Not so fast, not so easy. There are steps that have to be taken in advance. And even though we're not moving for around another year, it's not too early to start making plans. So one of the first things that I did, and I did this months ago, I want to say maybe 6 months ago, the last time I took Bella to our vet for her annual physical and to update shots and things, I shared with our vet that we are moving to France. And at that time, it was about 1.5 years off. And I asked her if she had any experience taking care of the paperwork that people need to move their pets into France. And she said, absolutely. She happens to be a USDA accredited veterinarian. So, and in my research that I've done since having a conversation with her, I have found that it is best if you're dealing with a vet who is certified or accredited by the USDA. The USDA is going to have a part in preparing or signing off on paperwork, verifying that your little baby is in good health. So the first thing you want to do is have that dialogue with your vet, which I did. The first thing that we discussed was her chip. Bella has been chipped. She was chipped years ago, and I was led to believe that there are a couple of different kinds of chip that you can get for your dog. And one of them is more of a universal chip that is recognized worldwide, and one is, I guess, more localized in your state or in the United States. Fortunately, Bella has the universal chip, so we don't have any problem there. The next thing we talked about was the rabies shot. before Bella can move to France, very soon before we move, Bella has to have her updated rabies shot. Typically, I get her a rabies shot that's good for 3 years. And our vet looked at her records and determined that her current rabies shot will expire next year, maybe a month or two before we move to France. So it's perfect timing. Now, if it's your puppy's first rabies shot, they want you to have that rabies shot much more in advance than a dog that's already had rabies shot multiple times. Now, France, or actually the EU, does require that your pet be treated for parasites within 24, 48 hours before entering the EU. So probably maybe the last day that you're here in the United States, you want to make sure that your pet is treated for that. So I had the conversation with my vet, and she told me how it has worked in the past. She told me that she completes a form for the USDA. And in the past, what she did was she then messengered that form to, in our case, we live in the state of Florida, she messengered it to Tallahassee. Now, she told me that, at least at the time I checked with her, that I had to have that form signed off by the USDA very close to 24 hours before this little baby sets foot on land in France. I have since read that it doesn't have to be within 24 hours. Everything that I've read in updated things says that this must happen within 10 days of your pet arriving in the EU. So this seems to be a general policy with pets, any pets, getting into the EU, anywhere in the EU, apparently, based on what I have found as of now. These are the conditions. So you have to have that USDA certificate signed off on by the USDA. Now, my vet also had told me that the form she sent, she messengers up to Tallahassee, that they have it messengered back to get things done fast. Because we now, as of now, we have 10 days, I don't know if we're going to do that. We may pay whatever it costs to do that, because I'm sure we're going to have to pay for that messenger. I can't believe she's going to have it messengered out of the kindness of her heart. We may do that just to be sure that we've got the form and not rely on the U.S. mail, because you know how mail is these days. I mean, sometimes something coming from the same state can take a week, 10 days, without rhyme or reason. Now, one thing that I want to mention, because I know that there are people out there that may come and go between the US and France, and maybe your little pet already has an EU passport. Here in the United States, if you are taking that pet to France, and you have to take it to one of our US vets to get a rabies shot or be chipped or whatever, it's very important that that US vet not note any of the vaccinations that it provides for your little baby here in the US in your EU pet passport. If they do that, it can invalidate your EU pet passport. So they are going to have to, the vet is going to have to complete a USDA health certificate for you to bring your baby back into France or back into the EU. So very, very important. If you're going back and forth, do not have an American, a US vet, note anything in your pet's EU pet passport. So you've decided that you're going to take your pet, cat or dog, or I guess it could be bird too, with you as you move. And who wouldn't? I mean, there's no way that I would leave my baby here in the United States and just say, goodbye. So one of the first things you're going to probably do is purchase airline tickets to go to France or wherever in the EU. So of course my husband and I will purchase tickets. Now we have already decided, based on research that I have done, again, with various airlines, to determine what conditions are for bringing a pet. Not all airlines will allow pets in carriers in the cabin. Some airlines, at least as of my current research, some airlines will not allow any pets in the cabin during a transatlantic flight. Well, for me, that ruled out that airline. We have been on Air France in business class and noted that we've always seen people with their little Yorkies actually in business class. And I went to the Air France website, and there's absolutely no problem bringing your pet, even if we sat in the regular premium economy. However, we've sort of gotten spoiled taking business class from the US to France because it's always an overnight flight. We always have a hard time sleeping. And in business class, you at least have the ability to lay down. I'm not sure how comfortable it's going to be with a little dog in a carrier, and I'm pretty sure we'll probably take her out of the carrier during the flight, as I've seen other people do on the flight. But you need to first do the research on the airline that you're planning to use to move over. Now, if your dog is too big to fit in a little carrier, and the airlines, each of the airlines will give you the details on how big the carrier has to be. Basically, the carrier has to be large enough for your pet to stand up and turn around. So, in our case, Bella doesn't even weigh 5 pounds yet. She's going to be in a little carrier. But if your dog is just too big for one of those little carriers, you need to check with the airline to find out what specifications they have. I don't know with larger dogs, since all of my research is geared to our bringing our little Bella over. I don't know what the criteria is for bringing large dogs over, like a golden retriever or, what have you. So let's talk about the carrier for your pet. As I said, your dog has to be able to stand up and turn around in it. And you also have to have some space in there for some water and a little bit of food. So you need to make sure that you go shopping once you've picked your airline. If they have certain specifications for the type or size carrier, make sure you buy a carrier that meets those specifications. It would be terrible to get all the way to the airport with your baby and find out that that carrier doesn't meet their specifications, and now they want to take your baby and put him or her in the hold. I would be devastated. So I'm going to do all of my research way ahead and even double check before we even get to the day of travel, and you should too. So once you buy your carrier, now you've got time between the day you buy your carrier and the time you fly to Europe. I've shown our carrier to Bella. She doesn't want any part of it. So for the moment, it's sitting in the garage on a shelf. But as we get closer, I would say maybe 4 or 5 months closer, which is coming up, we're going to get the carrier down, and I'm just going to put that carrier in the living room. And maybe, I don't know if her bed's gonna fit in there because her bed is, I think, wider than the carrier. But I'm gonna put it in the living room, maybe put some of her toys in there, maybe even put a little bowl of treats in there so that she gets used to coming and going in that little carrier. Because by the time the day arrives that we're gonna make our move, I don't want her to like panic that I'm putting her in this thing she's never seen before, and I don't want her to get scared. Now, when I spoke with Bella's vet, we talked about making it comfortable for Bella to travel and not having her panic or create a problem on the plane. And our vet told us that she could give me some kind of medication that could calm Bella a little bit, so she sort of just relaxes through the entire process. She's not going to go into that carrier until we actually get to whatever airport we are flying from. And then she's probably going to have to stay in that carrier for a lot of the time before the flight and obviously during the flight. Fortunately, the first flight to Paris from New York is about maybe 6 hours, 7 hours flying. So I just need to make sure she's good for that 6-7 hours. Then, since we are going to change planes to head on to Nice, I need to be able to take her outside, let her get some fresh air, and walk at the airport Paris before we get on our next flight. So I'm going to want to make sure that our connecting flight is a little bit of time, gives us a little bit of time. Although if it doesn't, we'll just have to deal with it, whatever it is. So if your dog is too large to fit in the cabin, then your dog is going to travel in the hold. And this may dictate what time of the year you're going to travel with your dog. Because the hold, I'm sure, gets cold in the wintertime and it gets really hot in the summertime. Probably not too hot for the animals to survive, otherwise I don't think they could offer the ability to take your pet in the hold. But you know, every now and then you hear these horror stories about somebody who brought their pet and you know, the pet died on the trip across. I mean, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. That would be a nightmare. So you want to make sure that you do a lot of research with the airline that you're using. And I know Air France for sure allows pets, dogs anyway, in the cabin with you. The good news is that in the EU, pets coming from the United States are not required to be quarantined. So that is good news. I think many years ago that was a requirement, but now it isn't. Again, I urge you shortly before you leave to check with your American embassy closest to you and just confirm that nothing has changed. You can find the U.S. Embassy website online, and you can go there and you can pull up all of the information that I'm actually giving you. And I'll provide links below for the U.S. Embassy website that I'm able to access. And there is also another link to USDA requirements for exporting a pet to Europe. So I'll post links for that as well. So if you're bringing your pet from another country into the EU, you're going to have to check your French Embassy website in your country or location in the world, because there apparently are some countries where if you're bringing a pet in from that country, that pet will have to be quarantined. Now, I had thought of just flying to Paris and then staying in Paris for a little bit and then taking the train to Nice, because the train ride from Paris to Nice, is, especially on high-speed train, is quite lovely and relaxing, and there's lots to see. Unfortunately, as of my last research, I always have to say that, because who knows, things could change, policies could change. As of my last research, 4 or 5 months ago, the trains, the high-speed trains, did not allow any pets, dogs, on the train unless they were a support animal. Since they don't want to allow pets on trains, we'll have to fly or rent a car even. We could do that. We could rent a car in Paris and we could drive. That's yet to be determined. Right now, we're just sort of concentrating on how to get her from the U.S. to France in the most comfortable way for her and for us, the easiest way for us without a lot of red tape and bureaucracy. So when you arrive in the EU, or in our case, France, it is supposedly a very smooth process. You go through immigration and customs, you show the paperwork that you have, and I will update and leave information in the details below if I find anything more updated. Now, once we get to France with Bella, we are going to have to make an appointment for her to go and see a vet in Nice, where we'll be. And the vet will give her an exam and look at her paperwork. And the vet will do whatever paperwork is necessary to get her her little French doggy passport. So we will, initially want to find a vet near where we're living and build up a relationship with that vet. And we're looking forward to doing that. Okay, let's talk about dealing with pets in France. Now, from what I have found in my research, first of all, a lot of hotels will not accept pets. Just in planning a vacation that we're taking in November back to Paris and Nice, not that I was planning on bringing Bella with us, but in reading about the hotels, I've noted that everyone that I looked at said no pets. So I already know that's an issue. A lot of Airbnbs also do not allow pets for short-term vacation stays. So you need to read the fine print when you are booking your reservations for your initial stop-off point, wherever it is in France or the EU. You want to make sure wherever you're staying, pets, in fact, will be allowed. If you are signing a lease or contract to rent either a furnished or unfurnished apartment, the landlord, and this is in French landlord or France's landlord rules, rights, whatever, the landlord is not allowed to forbid you from having any kind of pet, from bringing any kind of pet to live in their apartment or their home. So keep that in mind. But if you're just staying short stay, like for a vacation, they have every right to forbid that. Typically, when you're staying for a vacation, you're not signing a lease or a contract. It's just on Airbnb. So what we will probably do is, when we go back to France in November, we plan to try to make some appointments with some potential Airbnbs or apartments that we are thinking about renting just 4 or 5 months later. And if they're available and the landlord will allow us to take a quick look at them, even if they have tenants in between November and when we ultimately will need them, if the landlord will allow us to go take a look at them, we will check out the apartments and make sure it's going to be suitable for living there long term, or 6 months even, with our little dog. Now, when you're looking for a place to live, you need to remember you've got that little dog. That little dog needs to go out for a walk at least a few times a day. More if you're like my little Bella, who wants to go out, I don't know, every hour or two, because we give her a treat when she comes in to tell her she was a good girl for whatever she does out there. So somehow she manages to save up her little pee drips so that she at least does one pee outside so that she qualifies for the treat. She has us really trained well, and her daddy also helped in that training. So here in Florida, Bella has figured out that if she just barks to let us know she has to go out, she can get that treat. All she has to do is go outside and squirt. And she comes in and she gets her cookie. So I don't know what it's going to be like in France, because I don't know if we're going to have an elevator, if we're going to be on a ground floor. We're going to have to wait until we get there to figure that out. And she's also going to have to probably learn some new rules. But you want to make sure that not too far away from where you're living, there's at least a patch of grass so that she can take care of her business. I know, if you're moving to Paris, you're probably not going to find as much grass. I mean, there are parks all over the place. Make sure you live near one of them if you're going to have your little dog with you. Now, for those of you who have been to France, particularly Paris many times, and you've seen dog poo on the sidewalks and the streets, you will find it hard to believe that it is actually against the law to not pick up after your dog. Seriously. I was just as surprised when I found out that there is a law. So the law has been on the books since 1982. But everything that I've read about the law says that in spite of the law, old habits are hard to break. But as an American in a foreign country, even though you may have a long stay visa to be there, we don't want to look like the carefree Americans who just don't care, how our dog dirties up their streets and sidewalks. I mean, I don't want to contribute to the problem they already have. So Bella's leash has this little container that has bags in it. And these bags are so cheap. I mean, you can pick up the bags here in the U.S. at like the dollar store, the pharmacy. They have packages of them, and I get them like, I don't know, maybe a dozen little rolls of these, and they last forever. So before I leave for France, I'll probably have a little inventory of them boxed up, and maybe that'll be in part of what we ship over there. But you want to make sure that you have these as well. And also, you rarely see dogs running around off leash in France, in any part of France. I've never seen it, unless it was a rare stray dog. And I have to tell you, I can't remember ever seeing a stray dog. I think dogs are just very well taken care of, and they're always on leash. So you want to make sure that once you're over there, you keep your dog on leash and close to you, unless you're in your yard, fenced yard. As an American moving to France, I don't want people to look at me or my husband or our dog as, oh, those dirty Americans. They come here to France and they dirty up our country. So I don't want to stand out like that. I'd rather stand out as an exemplary American citizen who has chosen to retire in France and assimilate with the people of France so that we can all live harmoniously, and they will look at us as a wonderful addition to the country of France. So when you first get to France and you're at a hotel or even the apartment or home that you've rented, it's probably not a good idea to leave your baby alone, all alone, pretty fast after you come in and drop off your stuff. Because you know how dogs are. They get scared. They don't know where they are. It's a strange place. It's not their home. So one of the first things that we will do when we arrive in France at our sort of final destination, at least for the time being, will be to put out Bella's dog bed and bring a handful of her toys so that she immediately has something comfortable that feels like home to her, that's familiar. And I would say for the first few days, we probably won't leave her alone unless it's really, really necessary. I mean, you can't bring her into the grocery store. I've never seen any dogs. I mean, in France, you can bring your dog pretty much anywhere, but I have never seen dogs in the grocery store. So we may have to leave her to go fill the house or fill the pantry with some food. But beyond that, for long periods of time, we will probably take Bella with us out and about just until she starts to feel like, or seem like she feels like she's home. And she realizes it's okay to get comfortable. This is home. This is where we all live now. This is her bed. These are her toys. This is our bed. And, all of that. So you really have to think about things from your dog or cat's perspective. I mean, specifically right now, I'm concentrating on dealing with bringing a dog to France or the EU, but the same would apply if you're bringing a cat. I mean, you want the cat to feel comfortable, and so you want to bring some creature things that are comfortable for her old blanket or whatever she uses at home. So, and that's what we'll do. Actually, Bella has a bed, a regular fluffy bed. See, this is Bella's bed. So she has one of these, and then she also has this sort of like a dog blanket that I found on Amazon that we keep on our bed because she likes to sleep with us. And this other blanket, let me show you. See, look at this blanket. This is so soft and fluffy. And I keep this on our bed because sometimes during the day she likes to go and lay on our bed. And she'll just kind of curl up in it. Sometimes she rolls in it. Sometimes she makes this flip over her. So this was pretty cheap, and I found it on Amazon, as I said. So we'll probably bring this with us on the plane or in her carrier so she has something huggy to curl up in. And, you want to make her feel just as comfy as you want yourself to feel in a brand new country that's going to be your home. So our retirement to France is probably going to be the most researched move that you can possibly do. I'm researching every single facet of retiring to France. From bringing our baby with us to bringing luggage, shipping, and everything else. And as the months go on and I start learning new things about other parts of moving our stuff and retiring in France, I will be creating more videos. And if you are in the process of planning such a move, or you're thinking about moving to France and you can think of some topics that I have not yet addressed, please feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I just might use them as a future video subject. So, and that's pretty much everything that I've got to share with you on bringing your baby to France today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope my video has been helpful for you and informative. And as I continue to learn new things, I will absolutely update my videos and keep you informed as well. So thanks again for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you thought this video was helpful and good. And if you're not a subscriber, what are you waiting for? Bella says you better subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos as we continue to prepare and plan our move to retire to France. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time. Right, Bella? Right.